Hey there, survivors. Thanks for tuning in to tonight's episode. If you're new here, please consider subscribing. It really helps me keep these stories coming. And while you're here, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. Now let's get started. I was still carding teenagers when the first blackout rolled through. We'd had a few that summer, usually lasted a few hours, especially around Koreatown where half the grid is stitched together with guesswork and duct tape. At first, nobody really reacted. The LED light snapped off, the bass stopped thumping, and the drunk crowd just kept shouting like the music was still going. I stood by the front entrance, arms crossed, half bored. The club manager, Ricky, waved a flashlight from the bar, trying to herd people toward the exit. Phones lit up like fireflies. Videos still rolled. But then the phone stopped too. I remember that exact moment, actually. This girl in a silver top was filming herself mid-sip. Face tilted, eyes wide, lips perfect. And then her screen froze. She stared down at it, tapped a few times, then looked around. Everyone else started noticing the same thing. Screen's dead. No cell signal, not even emergency alerts. I muttered something like, "That's not just a blackout." It was about 6:10 p.m. when I heard the first siren. It wasn't the kind that whines past you and fades. This one held steady. Then another joined it. And another. Within 5 minutes, it sounded like every emergency vehicle in LA was heading somewhere in a hurry, and none of them knew which way to go. Some drunk guy came up to me laughing, said it felt like one of those fake emergency drills they do in disaster movies. He said, "What's next, man? Zombies?" I didn't laugh. I didn't think about it too hard then. I just knew something wasn't right. A few of the girls were filming the dark street outside. Across the way, some people were sprinting down the sidewalk. One woman tripped. Someone else vaulted over her. Nobody stopped. Ricky came up behind me. "You feeling this too?" I nodded. But before I could answer, someone screamed. It didn't come from inside the club. It came from the street. Loud, ripping. A pure, panicked scream that cut through all the drunk noise like it was nothing. Ricky opened the front door just wide enough to peek out. I followed. We saw him immediately. A man, maybe mid-30s, white shirt soaked through with blood, stumbling from behind the taco stand across the street. Not running, not yelling. Just walking like his body didn't understand what had happened to it yet. He had one hand pressed against his stomach, fingers splayed wide like he was trying to keep something from spilling out. His jeans were soaked from the knees down, and every few steps he staggered, like he was trying to stay upright on a moving boat. The taco stand's paper banner fluttered slightly in the breeze behind him, red and green letters advertising 2-for-1 carnitas. A bottle of Carritos lay broken near the curb, glass glittering in the streetlight's flicker. Everything felt too normal for what we were watching. It was like the city hadn't realized something was wrong yet. And then she followed. At first glance, she looked like a victim too. Barefoot. A red dress torn up the side, fabric flapping behind her like streamers. Her skin was smeared in streaks. At first I thought it was dirt, then oil. But it was too dark, too wet, and it glistened the wrong way. Her hair was wild, half matted to her face, half stuck to her shoulders. Her eyes were the first thing that felt off. Wide, glassy, fixed on him with a kind of intensity that didn't match anything human. She didn't run. She stalked. The guy turned as she got closer, probably thinking she was there to help. His arm raised a little, reaching for her. That's when she launched. She didn't shove him. She hit him, full force, shoulder to chest, and brought him down like a linebacker in the middle of Figueroa. His head cracked the pavement with a sound I felt through the glass of the door. His body bucked once on instinct. She landed hard on top of him, knees pressing into his sides. That's when things really started to unravel. Her hands gripped the sides of his head. His arms flailed once, then again, slapping at her shoulder, trying to push her off. But she didn't react. She didn't even blink. Her head dropped down, chin to chest, and then she leaned in, fast, like she was biting into an apple. I didn't move. No one did. I could hear her teeth, not just crunching, grinding. The sound was all wrong, wet and cracking and urgent, like she was trying to eat through him, not just at him. His legs kicked weakly, heels scraping across the sidewalk. Then they stopped. A second later, the streetlight above flickered back to life. That's when we saw it clearly. Her mouth was latched onto his neck, skin stretched, teeth sunk deep into the muscle. She wasn't biting and releasing like in a fight, she was chewing. Methodical, jaw clenching over and over like she was working through a steak. Blood poured down the side of her chin, dripped from her elbows and pooled beneath them both. A couple people on the curb screamed. Someone behind me gasped loud and sharp, like a balloon popping. And still, most just stared. One girl started filming on her phone. Another guy, maybe drunk, took a step forward, like he wasn't sure if this was part of some weird performance. Like this was still a prank, a publicity stunt. I don't blame them, it didn't register right. Nothing in your brain has a file for this. Ricky whispered, "What the hell?" I didn't answer. I was already stepping back, away from the glass, away from the street. The woman was still eating. When I reached the lock, I flipped it, turned the deadbolt. I don't know why. Like that tiny metal latch would matter. But it made me feel better, safer, less exposed. Ricky backed up too, his face pale in the dim emergency lighting from the bar. What was that? "Something we're not going to be part of," I said, already heading toward the rear hall. I could hear more people starting to panic now. The screamers, the runners, a few trying to get out the front, pounding on the glass, yelling at each other, asking what to do. One guy kept yelling to call 911. "Somebody call the cops! What the hell is she doing?" But nobody's phones were working, no bars, no signal, just dead rectangles in their hands, lighting up nothing. Ricky turned to me. "Shouldn't we do something? Help?" He looked out again. She was still on him, still chewing. I paused long enough to really see her this time. Her fingers had curled into claws, digging into the man's shirt, holding him still like he might still try to get up. Her jaw worked steadily. Her eyes were locked on the wound she was making, never glancing up, not even once. It didn't feel like rage or hunger, it felt like purpose. "No," I said. "We're done here." There was no plan, just instincts. I wasn't a hero, never had been. I'd broken up fights outside the club before, dealt with guys pulling knives, chicks swinging heels like weapons, drunk fools crashing into tables and vomiting on security guards. But this was different. This wasn't a fight. It wasn't an overdose. It wasn't someone out of control. It was something new. And something in me already knew. If we stayed here, we'd be next. I turned and headed down the side hallway, past the storeroom, into the back alley exit. Didn't even tell Ricky. I figured he'd try to call the cops again or pull some crowd control thing like it was still a normal night in LA. But I knew better. Whatever was happening out there wasn't going to stop, because someone called for backup, and it wasn't going to be fixed with flashlights and first aid. As I stepped out into the alley, the club lights flickered and finally went dark for good. Somewhere far off, a car horn blared, long and unbroken. Then a siren, then two, and the city finally started to scream back. And only then did it hit me. I needed to get somewhere safe. Home was the first thing that came to mind. I lived 5 blocks away, right above the laundromat on Westmoreland. The walk should have taken 7 minutes. It took 20, because everything was already breaking down. Cars were stopped in the intersections, horns blaring, doors open. Someone shouted for help from inside a barber shop. A man lay face down next to a flipped scooter on 3rd Street. I didn't stop. Every block felt worse than the last. The smells changed, less exhaust, more copper. The skies dimmed to that deep LA orange, and all the storefronts were just hollow reflections. The city didn't die in one big explosion. It unraveled, one small thread at a time. I reached my building, keys already out. Jack was inside. He wasn't answering my texts earlier. Probably drunk. The stairwell was dark. Someone had dropped a laundry basket near the 2nd floor. I stepped over a rolling bottle of detergent and got to my door. Unlocked. Slightly open. "Jack?" I called out. The living room was lit with a single camping lantern. He sat on the couch, shirtless, holding a warm beer like he was watching Sunday night football. "Power's out," he said. "No kidding." I slammed the door, bolted it, dragged the dresser over without asking him. He looked at me like I'd grown a second head. I didn't explain. I just grabbed the bat from under the bed. "Hey man, what's going on?" "There's people out there biting each other." He blinked. "Like, in a fight?" "No," I said. "Like they're eating each other." He laughed. "That's wild." I grabbed nails, duct tape, a hammer, started boarding the windows. I'd seen videos before, Reddit threads. I never believed them. Not until now. The TV flickered on for just a moment as I passed it. Static. Then a flash of an emergency banner. "Stay indoors. Secure your home. Await further instruction." Then black again. No signal. No nothing. We sat in silence for a long time after that. Jack sobered up quick. Even he could tell something was wrong. The noises from outside weren't normal city sounds anymore. It wasn't just traffic or shouting. It was more erratic. Screams that stopped too suddenly, footsteps that ran past our door and didn't come back. At one point, a guy upstairs shouted something in Spanish, then a crash, then nothing. "I think we should leave," Jack whispered. "To where?" He didn't answer. We didn't turn on lights. We didn't speak much. We sat with our backs to the wall, watching the door. And that's how night fell. LA didn't go out with a bang. It dimmed, block by block, window by window, until all that was left were the noises in the dark. At around 10 p.m., I looked out through the boarded slats. A man was in the street, near the parking meters. He held a little girl in his arms. She was maybe 6, crying, her clothes torn. He knelt down and hugged her close. Then she bit him. He didn't scream, didn't fight. He just rocked back and forth while she latched on. His head tilted back, eyes wide, not in pain, but in disbelief. Like this wasn't supposed to happen. That's when I stopped looking. I sat back on the floor and let the bat rest across my lap. We didn't sleep. We didn't talk. We just waited for a knock on the door, or a sound in the hallway, or whatever came next. I didn't know it then, but the next phase of the outbreak was already starting. It wasn't until after midnight that the city shifted again. The chaos had started loud, sirens, screams, metal on metal, that first layer of raw panic. But by now it had burned down into something quieter. Still, that kind of stillness that presses up against your windows like it wants in. There were no more cries for help, no more angry shouting from the street. Just this occasional scuffle sound, like shoes dragging across concrete. Sometimes they scraped right under our window. Jack had finally shut up and stopped asking questions I couldn't answer. He lay flat on the floor, staring at the ceiling like it might explain something. He kept the bat nearby too, though I knew he wouldn't swing it if it came to that. Not unless something forced him to. Me? I didn't know. I wanted to think I'd be ready, but there's a difference between holding a weapon and knowing what to do with it when your life's on the line. Around 1 a.m., we heard something move in the hallway. Not loud, more like a slow shuffle, like someone with a limp dragging a foot behind them. It passed our door once, paused, then came back. Jack held his breath. I stayed still, listening. Whatever it was, it didn't knock. No voice, no fumbling with the handle. Just slow, unsteady pacing. Then something new. This wet, rhythmic thudding against a wall. Thump, thump, thump. Like someone banging their head slowly, repeatedly into drywall. We waited. It stopped after a while, but the silence it left behind felt worse than the sound itself. Jack whispered, "You think it's one of them?" I didn't answer. But yeah, I did. I was starting to understand something. Something I hadn't quite put into words until that moment. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just some sickness. It changed people, not just made them sick or angry. It hollowed them out, left something behind that looked human but didn't act like it. Not really. We didn't have a name for it yet. Online, months later, I'd hear people calling them redmouths, groaners, the sick, even the left. But back then, we didn't know what to call them, so we just called them what we feared, them. The worst part was the waiting. There's no clock slow enough to match the minutes spent wondering if someone, or something, is just standing outside your door, listening. Sometimes I imagined it leaning in close, pressing its ear to the wood, waiting for a sound. Sometimes I imagined it could smell us through the crack. The seconds stretched until dawn. By the time the first grey light bled through the boarded-up window slats, the sounds had changed again. This time it was more like a pack. Multiple feet, fast, something running. A crash down the block. A scream that was cut off. A garbage bin tipped over. And then silence again. We waited until full daylight before moving. Our apartment faced east, and the morning sun sliced through the boards in thin gold lines. That glow felt sacred. Safe. We stood in the light and talked for the first time in hours. Jack wanted to leave. I didn't blame him. Staying inside felt like waiting to starve. But I wasn't ready to go wandering out just yet. Not without knowing what we were walking into. Our building wasn't big. 2 floors, maybe 12 units in total. Most were dark and quiet, but we hadn't checked them. I suggested we sweep the place. If we stayed, we needed to know if we were truly alone. I didn't want to be caught off guard by someone who'd turned during the night and never made it out the front door. We started with the second floor. I had the bat. Jack grabbed a golf club from under his bed. We moved quiet, slow, no heroics. We didn't call out, didn't knock, just turned knobs, listened, moved on. The first 2 doors were locked. Third was open. Inside, the air was thick with something rotten. I stepped in first, keeping low. The light from the window showed just enough. Someone had tried to barricade the door with a dining chair. Didn't work. The table was flipped, and something red had soaked into the rug beneath it. I didn't need to see the body to know what had happened. But we did see it. Half in the bathroom, slumped against the tub. His chest was torn open, ribs visible. The way his mouth hung open bothered me. Not because he looked scared, but because he didn't. He looked blank, like he never saw it coming. We backed out, closed the door gently. "That was Jay," Jack whispered. "He lived here 3 years. I borrowed his bike pump last month." Neither of us said much after that. We kept going. One unit had been stripped bare, like someone had packed everything and left before things got bad. Another had a wall covered in mirrors and crystals, with a burned-out candle shrine and a note scrawled on the wall that read, "This is just the start." That one stuck with me. Downstairs we checked the laundry room and mail area. That's when we found the first sign that someone, or something, had tried to get in. The front door's bottom corner was splintered, not kicked in, but broken from the outside. Scratched, as if someone had used their hands or claws. We reinforced the door again, used furniture this time, a cabinet, 2 chairs, and a mini fridge from one of the units downstairs. Around noon, we ate what we had, a sleeve of crackers, 2 bottles of Gatorade. Jack found an old protein bar in his gym bag. We took turns staring through the blinds. More people were on the streets now, but not like before. They moved slow. Some wandered like sleepwalkers. Others moved in packs, fast, jerky. We watched a man sprint across 3rd, chased by a group of them. They caught him near the old bus bench and piled on. He didn't scream, just vanished beneath them. Jack stopped watching after that. I didn't. I had to know what they were doing, how they moved, how they hunted. And that's when I saw something new. One of the infected, her arms soaked in blood, eyes wide but dull, stopped. She turned her head slowly, sniffed the air, then looked directly at our window. She stood there for a long time, like she could feel us behind the boards, like she knew we were watching. Then she walked away. I stepped back, sat down, didn't say a word. We had decisions to make. Stay, go, wait, try the roof. But the truth was, there were no good choices anymore. Only ones that might buy us another day, or might get us killed. We slept in shifts that night. And in the quiet hours, when the lights were gone and the air was still, I started to realize something I hadn't faced until then. This wasn't going to end in a few days. There wasn't going to be a press conference. No choppers airlifting the wounded off rooftops. No dramatic final stand from the National Guard. If anyone was still in charge out there, they'd gone quiet. And the city, for all its noise, had learned a new kind of silence. By day 3, Jack had stopped asking if help was coming. He was the kind of guy who always needed a plan. Grocery list, gym schedule, Sunday football. But now, he just sat by the window and counted people passing below. Sometimes they were fast and screaming, sometimes slow and quiet. We stopped trying to tell the difference. I started giving them nicknames. Not officially, not in any kind of journal, just in my head. The slow ones, those were drifters. Blank stares, twitchy hands like they were halfway sleepwalking. They'd stagger down the sidewalk like they had nowhere left to go. You could see them in clusters, behind trash bins, curled up on the hoods of abandoned cars, tucked in doorways like stray dogs. Then there were the fast ones. I didn't give them a name right away. I couldn't. It felt wrong, like naming a nightmare. But they were different. They moved with purpose, like they had memories of what it meant to chase something. I saw one of them full sprint across Vermont Avenue, leap onto a truck's hood, then dive through an open second-floor window. Whatever was in that apartment didn't last long. Sometimes we heard gunshots, never close, just far-off pops echoing through the canyons of the city. Once, a heavy boom rattled our windows. Maybe a gas station, maybe a transformer. We never found out. But after that night, the lights on Wilshire went dark for good. Food became a problem faster than I thought. I always figured if the world ended, we'd have time to raid a store or something. But the nearest grocery was a no-go by day 2. Looted, glass everywhere. We could see the flashlights moving inside from down the block, people too desperate or too far gone to care who else was watching. So we ate what we had, saltines, instant ramen, canned fruit with the label half peeled. I started rationing without saying it out loud. 1 can between 2, half a bar instead of a whole. We kept the water in the tub, filled it before the pressure dropped. Jack didn't like the taste, but he drank it anyway. By day 4, the building didn't feel safe anymore, not because it had changed, but because we had. We were starting to rot inside those walls, waiting, watching, listening to people die just on the other side of drywall. I needed air, I needed movement, I needed to know we weren't the last 2 living things in the city. So I did something stupid. I went to the roof. We hadn't tried the roof access yet. I guess I assumed it was locked. But that morning, with the sky overcast and the air thick with smoke from something burning near downtown, I decided to try. It opened. The stairwell smelled like urine and bleach. Someone had tried to clean it once, a long time ago. At the top, the metal door creaked, and I winced at the sound. Every sound mattered now. Every creak or tap or whisper could bring something to your doorstep. But when I stepped out onto the roof, the wind hit me in the face like I'd been underwater for days. From up there, I could see more than just our block. Koreatown stretched east and west, a grid of low roofs and thin alleyways. In the distance, smoke curled up from a gas station near Olympic. The Wilshire towers stood tall and useless, no lights, no movement, just dead glass and steel. Then I saw movement. Not close, maybe 5 blocks out. On top of another building, a figure, standing alone, waving something shiny. A mirror? Foil? I wasn't sure. But they were alive. Not infected. I could tell by the way they moved, cautious, deliberate, always scanning. I waved both arms, jumped a little, tried to signal. I even took off my shirt and spun it like a flag. Nothing. Whoever it was, they saw me. I know they did, but they didn't wave back. They just stepped away and vanished behind a vent shaft. I don't know why that bothered me so much. Maybe because I thought we'd be allies just by proximity. Same species, same nightmare. But I was learning another truth now. People weren't just afraid of the infected. They were afraid of each other. No one wanted to take the chance. When I got back down, Jack asked what I saw. I told him the truth mostly, that the city was still burning, that someone else was out there. He asked if they looked normal. I paused, then said, "Yeah." Later that day, someone tried to get into the building. We heard them first, pounding on the front entrance, then the side, slamming something heavy, maybe a pipe. Jack grabbed the bat. I stayed near the door. The furniture we'd stacked barely held. The hinges groaned. Then we heard a voice, human, a woman. "Please, someone! Please, they're behind me!" Jack moved towards the door. I didn't. He hesitated, looked at me, his mouth open. "You open that," I said quietly. "We're done." "She's alive." "She's loud." The pounding stopped. We listened. Then something slammed against the glass. A wet, heavy crack. Then again. Over and over. Not fists. Something else. Something with more weight behind it. We didn't speak after that. That night, we pulled everything we had into the hallway. Mattresses, food, lantern. We slept between the stairwell and the back exit, just in case we had to run. The city kept breathing its slow, dying breath outside, and we started to forget what day it was. I didn't keep a journal, didn't carve marks in the wall. I only kept count by the number of bites left in each can of beans, each scream we didn't investigate, each night we didn't die. And something inside me was beginning to change. Not like them, not like the drifters or the runners. Something colder, something more focused. I wasn't hoping anymore, I was calculating, and I knew if we stayed we'd starve. Jack didn't see it yet, not fully. He still woke up checking his phone like maybe, by some miracle, service would return. He still looked for helicopters in the sky. He still left the light on in the hallway at night, like it would keep the dark from touching us. I let him have that. Maybe he needed it, but I stopped playing along. We had 3 cans left, 2 bottles of water, a few random packets, soy sauce, mustard, 1 sticky energy gel from some forgotten marathon. We were out of time. I told him on the morning of what I figured was day 6. Could have been 5, could have been 10. Time felt warped, but the sunlight was sharp again, and the air smelled less like fire and more like rot. That's how I marked the change. We had to move. He didn't argue, just nodded. Maybe he'd been waiting for me to say it. Maybe he'd known all along. We packed light, a backpack each, water, food, the bat. He still had the golf club, though the head was loose now. I gave him a hammer from the old maintenance closet. We both had gloves, no masks, no helmets, just layers, hoodies, jackets, whatever we could find. Not for warmth, for teeth. We didn't know where we were going. Not really. There'd been rumors scrawled on walls, murmurs on the wind, whispered from the windows of other survivors in other buildings. A safe zone at the VA in Westwood, another near MacArthur Park. Someone said the old Lafayette Hotel had a barricade and guards, but they were all stories, none of them confirmed. The only thing we knew for sure was that there was nothing left for us here. We took the fire escape. The back alley was clear, no drifters, no fresh blood. Just a burned-out van, a scattering of broken glass, and the smell of rotting trash. The sun was still low, cutting long shadows between buildings. That helped. The infected weren't as active early, or maybe we were just lucky. We moved fast, heads down, avoided major roads. Koreatown was a mess of intersecting alleys and cracked sidewalks, which worked in our favor. You could vanish in 10 steps if you knew where to turn. We did. Every so often we'd pass someone, usually not moving. Sometimes too still to be alive. other times too quiet not to be. We didn't check. A gas station on Beverly looked like it had been hit early, doors off the hinges, shelves stripped, but the fridges were still intact. Jack smashed one open with the hammer, glass spraying across the tiles. We found warm soda, a few bottles of iced tea, a half-squashed sandwich. Didn't matter. We took it all. A kid's body lay in the corner behind the counter. No marks. Just curled up, like he fell asleep waiting for his mum. Jack looked for too long. I didn't. By midday the sky turned brown. Not clouds, ash. Something else was burning again, maybe downtown. We kept moving, cutting west past Normandy, through an overgrown community garden, through alleys stinking of piss and wet cardboard. Every few blocks we'd hear them, either the slow shuffle of drifters or the hard slam of runners tearing through doors. One time we had to duck behind a dumpster when a group of runners sprinted down 5th, 5 of them, shirtless, mouths open, twitching like they were overheating. They didn't stop for anything, just a straight line from one ruin to the next. That's when I noticed something new. Their eyes. Up until now I hadn't really looked, but these ones, something was different. Not glassy or dead. Not exactly. They were focused. Not on us. Not on anything specific. But they weren't empty either. Something was working behind them, like their brains hadn't fully shut off. I didn't tell Jack. I just waited until they were gone, and we moved again. We passed a man standing in the middle of an intersection near Western. No visible wounds. He didn't move when we got close. Didn't speak. Just stood with his head tilted up at the sky, mouth slightly open, as if listening to something far off. We gave him a wide berth. The first time we saw survivors was near Wilshire and Carondelet, a 3-story office building, barricaded windows, and a woman on the roof with binoculars. She didn't wave, just tracked us as we passed. A guy on the 2nd floor aimed a rifle at the sidewalk, never fired, didn't need to. The message was clear. Don't come closer. We didn't. Jack muttered something about how we should have stayed in our building. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. We stopped around dusk in a small concrete courtyard between 2 churches. The benches were broken, fountains dry, but there was cover and no sign of fresh movement. We ate what we could and decided to wait for nightfall to cross into the next block. That was a mistake. Runners don't sleep, they just get quiet. We heard them first, bare feet slapping pavement, then a scream, not fear, rage, something furious and broken, tearing up the night like a war horn. 3 of them burst into the courtyard from the side gate, all fast, all bleeding. One had no nose, just a black pit. Another's hands were twisted at unnatural angles, but he still used them like claws. I shouted. Jack froze. I yanked him back and ran. No plan, no direction, just away. We hit a chain-link fence and I scaled it without thinking, dropped hard on the other side. Jack hesitated. The runners were right behind. I screamed at him. He jumped. His leg caught on the wire, ripped clean open along the thigh. He landed bad, groaned, tried to stand. I hauled him up. We limped into a parking garage, found a stairwell, and slammed the door behind us. It had a bolt. I turned it. Then we sat there, panting, listening. They didn't follow. Not immediately. We waited until the sounds outside died down, until the growling and stomping and dragging of limbs turned back into silence. Then I looked at his leg. Bad. Not a bite. Just torn, muscle exposed, blood soaking through his jeans. I wrapped it with a shirt, tied it tight. He didn't cry, but I could see the truth in his face. He wasn't going to keep moving, at least not far. I found an office upstairs. Must have been a security booth once. Metal desk, old maps. One of those green plastic lamps with the pull chain. No power, but the room had a lock. That was enough. We stayed there through the night. Jack drifted in and out of sleep, mumbled things, asked if I thought his sister was okay. I lied. I looked through the cracked window at the city and realized something I hadn't let myself accept until then. There wasn't going to be a rescue, not for us, not for anyone. LA was lost. Not in flames, not flattened, just hollowed out, like someone had carved the soul out of it and left the body standing. The skyline still looked the same in the distance, but I could tell nothing behind those buildings was alive the way it used to be. The infected didn't roam like predators anymore. They drifted, nested, took over entire zones. Some formed loose herds, clusters of drifters gathered around bus stops, gas stations, front porches, just swaying in place, heads tilted, as if waiting for orders. The runners moved through them sometimes, faster, more erratic, like bloodhounds looking for something, or someone. By morning, Jack couldn't stand. His leg was badly swollen, hot to the touch. I cleaned it with bottled water and wrapped it again, but I knew it wasn't going to help. We were out of medicine, no painkillers, no antibiotics, no chance. He asked if I'd leave him. I said no. He didn't believe me. I didn't believe myself either. Around midday, I heard someone in the stairwell. Not fast, careful, boots on concrete. I grabbed the bat, pressed myself to the wall near the door. Jack watched me, eyes half closed, mouthing something I couldn't hear. The door creaked open. A woman stepped through. Thin, sunburnt, hair pulled back with a scarf. Military jacket, scar on her neck. She had a pistol, holstered, and a machete across her back. Didn't draw either. She saw me, paused, then lifted her hands slowly. "You alone?" she asked. "No." Her eyes tracked to Jack on the floor behind me. She looked at him for a long moment, then back to me. "There's a group about 6 blocks west, near the old Wilshire Medical Centre, 2 floors up. We've got food, water, antibiotics, limited, but enough." I didn't answer. "We move at dusk," she added. "Only take people who can keep up. If he can't walk, he stays." She looked at me like she was offering a choice, but it wasn't. It was a statement of fact. Then she nodded once and left. Jack didn't say anything for a while. He just stared up at the ceiling, like the whole sky was behind it. "Go," he said, eventually. I shook my head. He smiled, weak. "You don't owe me anything." He was wrong. I did. We'd survived the first days together. Not perfectly, not bravely, but together. We kept each other grounded when everything else fell apart. But I also knew he was right. If I stayed, we'd both die here. I gave him half of what we had left. Water, crackers, the last protein bar. I left the hammer too, propped against the wall next to his sleeping bag, just in case. Not for fighting, for choice. He told me to take the bat, so I did. I waited until the sun dipped low and the streets turned amber. Then I left. I moved fast, through broken alleys, past dead storefronts, over bodies that had been there long enough to attract flies, but not long enough to stop smelling. I avoided main roads, crossed through a church playground, cut across a parking lot filled with burnt-out sedans and toppled shopping carts. The city looked like it had paused mid-sentence. When I reached Wilshire, I saw signs spray-painted on the walls, red arrows, the letters TWS, and a symbol that looked like a rising sun. I followed them. At the base of the medical centre, I stopped. The glass doors were broken, but inside was quiet. No moans, no movement. Just a long, dark lobby filled with scattered papers and overturned wheelchairs. A man was waiting behind a sandbag wall, rifle in lap. He looked tired, but alive. When he saw me, he tapped the walkie clipped to his vest. Seconds later, the woman from earlier waved down from a second-floor window. She signaled. I moved inside. They checked me for bites, took my bat, handed me a bottle of water and a folded blanket. No warm welcome, no introductions, just nods, faint signs of relief. Inside the center, there were maybe 20 people, some hurt, some whole. Most looked like they hadn't slept in days. There was a generator powering a few lights and a portable radio that looped an old emergency broadcast. Shelter in place. Do not attempt to reach hospitals. Stay low. Stay quiet. No one talked much. The air inside smelled of sweat and plastic and bleach. I sat on the floor by the window, blanket around my shoulders, and watched the night come down over LA. Somewhere out there, Jack was still alive. Maybe. I hoped he made it through the night. I hoped the hammer stayed untouched. I hoped he saw morning. The survivors in that medical center didn't ask for stories. Everyone there already had one, most worse than mine, most fresher. Some with names they no longer said out loud. Days passed. We held our ground, took shifts, maintained silence, learned to tell the difference between the sounds of survivors and the sounds of them. I heard new names for the infected: shufflers, bone-biters, echoes. Some groups had classifications. Stage 1s were slow, Stage 2s were fast. No one talked about a Stage 3, or maybe they didn't live long enough to. Eventually, I stopped thinking about what came before. My job, my old apartment, the clubs, the blackout, even Jack. Not because I forgot, but because remembering too long could get you killed. That was the first rule here. Stay alive now. Mourn later. If ever. I'm still here. Still breathing, still listening. I found a new bat last week. Steel this time. Better wait. Every few nights I dream about the city before. Not the people, just the noise. Cars on the freeway. Music through a wall. Arguments from balconies. Sirens that still meant something. But when I wake up, it's always quiet. And I remember where I am. This world isn't going back. Not now. Not ever. And me? I don't wait for rescue anymore. I build exits. I watch the rooftops. And when the sun goes down, I don't turn on the lights. Because I've learned the last rule the hard way. Do not go outside. Not for anyone. Not anymore. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like and subscribe for more unsettling creepypastas. Your support keeps my channel alive. Until next time, stay quiet, stay vigilant, and trust nothing, not even the silence.